to The Explainer. We're jumping right in today with a source that makes a really startling claim about one of the most famous prophecies in the New Testament. So, is it a divine prediction or something else entirely? So, we're looking at a source that really challenges the foundation of one of the New Testament's most famous prophecies. And it forces us to ask a big question. Was this some incredible moment of divine foresight? Or are we just hearing an echo from a text that's, much, much older? Okay, so let's get into it. Our journey starts with a prophecy that is, for many, an absolute cornerstone of their faith. We're talking about Jesus' prediction about the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, the one recorded in the Gospel of Luke. Now, the source we're looking at really zeroes in on this one powerful passage in Luke 21. This is where Jesus paints this incredibly vivid and pretty dire picture, right? He talks about a city surrounded by armies, which would lead to its total desolation and ruin. For centuries, this has been held up as just undeniable proof of divine foresight. People point to it as a super precise prediction of the Roman siege of Jerusalem back in 70 CE. But the source we're digging into today, it kind of throws a wrench into that whole interpretation. And this source, it doesn't beat around the bush at all. It asks a really direct and pretty provocative question. Was this a brand new divine revelation from Jesus himself? Or, and this is the key, was he just repeating a prophecy that someone else had already made hundreds of years earlier? All right, so to back up a claim this bold, you'd expect some complex modern analysis, right? Well, that's not what this source does. Instead, it takes us way back in time. We're talking hundreds of years before Jesus, deep into the Hebrew Bible. The author points us to a very specific place, the book of Daniel, chapter 9. Now, this passage describes a prophecy that was given to Daniel while he was in the Babylonian exile. Just to put that in perspective, this is a long time before anything in the New Testament happened. And this timeline, this is where the argument really starts to pick up steam. I mean, look at that gap. The prophecy written down in Daniel comes centuries before the one in Luke. We're not talking about a small difference here. This is a massive historical divide, and it's absolutely central to the source's whole argument. So it's not just about finding an older prophecy. That's part of it, for sure. But the real bombshell, at least according to this author, is how incredibly similar the language and the details are when you put the two texts next to each other. And yeah, this is where you can really see the core of the argument laid out visually. By putting these key phrases from Luke right next to Daniel, the source is trying to show what it sees as a direct link. You've got the same themes popping up in both. Armies, destruction, desolation, it's all there. So because of these parallels, the source basically interprets Daniel's text as a really clear roadmap. It's not just some vague warning. No, it's seen as a specific prediction of the entire life cycle of the Second Temple, from its chaotic rebuilding all the way to its final destruction. Then the source takes it a step further and makes a direct historical connection. It tries to identify that prince who shall come from Daniel's prophecy. And who do they say it is? None other than the Roman general Titus, the son of Emperor Vespasian. And he's the guy who actually commanded the legions that sacked Jerusalem in 70 CE. Okay, so where is all this heading? After all this textual analysis and these historical connections, where does it land? Let's get to the author's final conclusion, which is, well, it's pretty provocative. The author builds their case in three pretty clear steps. First, you have the prophecy of destruction in Luke 21. Second, you have this really similar prophecy in Daniel 9, written over 400 years earlier. And third, the source argues that the details and the language just overlap so much that it can't be a coincidence. So based on all that, the source comes to this really stark and, frankly, controversial conclusion. The argument is, if the prophecy wasn't original, then it calls the whole idea of divinity and messiahship into question. It basically reframes Jesus not as a divine prophet, but as someone who was, deeply familiar with older scriptures. All right, so we've walked through this entire argument, right? All the way from the familiar words in Luke back to this ancient prophecy in Daniel. Now, the author presents what they see as a really compelling case, but it's definitely one that challenges some deeply held beliefs. So we're going to leave you with a final thought to chew on. Does this alleged connection take away from the prophecy's power, or does it maybe add a whole new layer of historical and theological depth? That's something for you to think about.